Hey, all, it's MG. Thanks for being here on the Mankind Media channel, formerly the All Things Billy the Kid channel, but there's more things than just Billy the Kid, as we've hopefully learned in life. Great to be back with you. So today starts maybe what I would call kind of the rebirth or regrowth of this channel, because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do with it, right? I don't have anything else to talk about with Billy the Kid. I don't think there's anything else to discover. But I wanted to highlight other authors new upcoming authors that you may not have heard about. But I also want to highlight some subject matter experts from books that I have upcoming. I've had kind of a rebirth in my writing. I took about a year off and I really got stagnant with it, but I've been back at it. I have a new book number 10 in the Back to Billy series, coming out on my birthday, January 19th. That's called What Lies Beneath, but also working on my pickleball comedy novel called Dink This. And I've got a bunch of other writing projects. So I'm aiming for 2 to 3 releases per year. And so now you're going to meet other authors. You're going to learn their process. You're going to meet subject matter experts of the books that I have coming up and others have coming up. I think it'll be a fun place to hang out. So please, if you would like to hear anything specific, you know somebody we should talk to, just go in the comments right down here and tell us what we should be doing. But today, I have a great surprise for you. I've got a wonderful author from here in New Mexico, and she has written the Darkness trilogy. Now, when I tell you Cassie wrote a trilogy, she really did. She's smart enough to just stop at 3 books. I have a trilogy that's 10 freaking books long, and I can't stop it. Every 3 books I've said, oh no, that's the end, but I have not been able to do that. But Cassie actually did, now moved on to another idea. But I'd love to welcome you love to introduce you to my friend, author extraordinaire, and one hell of a pickleball player, Cassie Sanchez. Hey, Cassie.
Hi, MG. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Wow, look at that. That looks like a writer's office there.
I know, it's a mess.
Post-its, and are those like story ideas or?
Yeah, so this is a kind of like all the scenes in the current book I'm working on, just, like the introduction scenes and based off of point of view. And then, yeah, it's a mess, but that's how I started work.
I got you. Let's get people quickly in tune or in touch with. There we go. So too many windows there. Let's try that again.
I'm glad you're doing all that. I wouldn't know how to do any of it.
Share screen, tire screen. There we go. That's the one we wanted. There it is. That's right. That is the Darkness trilogy. Yeah, look at you. This is from your author's page on Amazon. And Excellent. If you search for Cassie Sanchez, you can find that. Embracing the Darkness, Chasing the Darkness, and Conquering the Darkness, which probably is the number one thing, because if you're afraid of the dark, you want to conquer it. We're going to talk more about your books later, but I want people to know that they can go right now to the Amazon page. You can order any of Cassie's books. You should definitely follow her because she's got a new exciting project coming out that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So, all right, I've got questions. You've got answers. Can I start asking away?
Ask away.
What makes a book to you? Is there a certain number of words or a certain number of pages where you go, oh, this is a short story. No, this is a book. Like, is there some guidepost in your mind?
For me, for fantasy, I shoot for at least 90,000 words for a book. I know romance can be considered sometimes shorter, but yeah, I shoot for 90. For instance, Chasing the Darkness, the first book in my trilogy, is about 94,000 words. And then Embracing gets a little longer. It's over 100,000. And then I think Conquering is about 110, 115,000 words. So I aim for 90,000. However, my first draft is always very, very short. And then I have to go back in and add lots and lots.
So when you say really short, like you would get to the end of a first draft and it might be
50 to 60,000 words.
So yeah. Still quite a bit of work left to do.
Yes.
So tell me why that happens. So is it because you're in such a rush to get the structure down, or is it that when you go back the story has matured more in your mind?
I think it's actually a bit of both, in all honesty. I think I I'm kind of right-brained in my or more no, I'm left-brained in my thinking, and I'm kind of a plotter, as you can see by all that. And so for me, it's like just getting the scenes down. I write pretty linearly, chronologically from beginning to end. And I know that, I'm going to come back and like, I was just talking to another author friend of mine, and it's like, okay, insert fight scene here, or insert, a little bit of backstory here, because I'm just maybe not in the mood to write that. Um, so I shoot for trying to get as much of it done. It's ugly. My first draft is always ugly. And I think of it almost like an ice sculpture, like it's a big chunk of ice. And
Mhm.
then I just start chipping it away, but kind of the reverse of that, because mine is a lot shorter and then I add to it.
Gotcha.
That's a
Okay.
horrible metaphor.
Not at all. So, how somebody asked me this the other day. They said, "Oh, how long is the actual writing process for one of your books?" And I just had to do a calculation based on about 1,000 words an hour, which is what I think I write, um, times the number. So, how long does it take you from when you punch that title into a Word document until you hit the end for the first draft? How long might that be?
Oh goodness. Well, it's definitely probably I'm going to say 8 to 9 months. For me, I wish I was faster. I can tell you that right now. I was actually trying to think, when did I really start writing this new book that I'm working on? I started coming up with some ideas last summer. But when I really first started writing it, it was probably the beginning of this year. So, I mean, we're looking at what, November, and I'm going to submit my manuscript to my editor in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's for me, in all honesty, and that first draft is so hard for me. I don't know if it's the creativity of getting it all out, the pressure of making sure I get it out, get the words on the page. I love the editing and rewrite process way more than the first draft process. And I think sometimes I'm in a hurry to get the story down, and I don't do enough, not necessarily research, since, well, I write fantasy, but I still need to research, but I don't do enough, maybe building up and getting the backstory of the characters and really getting an idea of what they're doing and where they're going. I just want to sometimes just start writing, and then I have to go back and, fix a lot.
Mhm. So you said the board behind you has those,
Yeah.
what you called scenes, and I would call them that too because I write screenplays also, so it's easier for me to think in scenes. So is there an architecture to each of your books? In other words, is there some process before you start writing where you draw up the plans and go, this piece is going to go here and this here?
Yes. So I have a lot of journals, and I will start. There's a great book by C.S. Lakin. I have it somewhere. The 12 pillars of novel writing. I don't know if I got that right, but and she talks about, like, the first pillar. Where is it? Is a protagonist with a goal. So I start with my protagonist, and who is he or she, and what is their goal, and what are their, like, do they have a wound? Do they have a quirk? What is their motivation? And so I kind of just start, fleshing that out and thinking about it. And then what's the next one? Conflict with high stakes. So whether that's my antagonist or whatever the situation is that's going to cause some tension throughout the story, I'll start evaluating that. And then it's theme with heart. I'm missing one. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's the idea. It's the concept. That's where you first start. So I start there, and I start just kind of jotting down ideas and thinking it through, and then just start building from there and start thinking about my scenes, like whether it's, the setup scene and putting my character in its original environment, and then what is the problem that's going to start pushing this story forward, and taking you through that. And then from there, so I have my setup, and then I have my inciting incident, and then she breaks it up into, like, your pinch point, one and your twist one, which is usually your pinch point is your antagonist, kind of introducing what the big problem is or who's fighting who, or the conflict. And then the twist, obviously it's a twist. And then that takes you to the midpoint. And then you have your pinch point two, your twist two, your climax, or your dark night, your moment, and then your climax, and then your aftermath. And then from there, you actually have like action reaction levels. So then you add to that. Okay, so if this happens in this chapter, well, what's the reaction? What is that going to spur on? And then you just keep adding and adding these index cards. But I can tell you right now, what's on here has changed dramatically from the final story, because as I start writing, that's when the plotting part of me turns into more of a pantser, and that creativity just starts to flow, where I can that I'm like, oh, that storyline didn't work as well, or oh, I'm going this direction, I like this better, or whatever. So I have a starting point. I don't stick to it. It's just a very loose map, kind of a guideline to get me from point A to the end, is how I kind of look at it.
Gotcha. That's fascinating, because listening to you describe that and go through the different kind of points in the story and all this stuff, I realize that I'm doing everything wrong.
You're not
Like,
doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong.
like
There
I'm
are
not doing even one of those things. And
Yeah.
I'm going, oh my gosh, but like if I really did have, I don't think I could do that. But
Yeah, there's a lot of authors. I mean, this, you got to find, and that's one of the things I learned is through writing, and I'm, still learning. I know, that there's a whole iceberg, and I've got this much known, and there's a whole bunch underneath the ocean that I still need to figure out. But each author has their own system that works, and I'm a kind of a type A left brain, I have my lists and I love checking them off, and I'm very, detail oriented in some things. So this process works for me. I've done the Saves the Cat Writes a Novel. That's a whole bunch of, that's kind of like an outlining format as well. It's a great book too. And that just helps me. I tried just to sit down with the first book. I tried just to sit down and just write, like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to write. And I found more times that just put pressure on me. And I'm just looking at that blank screen, just going, I don't know where my character's going. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm at in my world, So for me, it just helps to have a guideline, as long as I am not rigid with it and I still allow, the movement of the story, because it's my story now, I believe, is way better than what's on these Post-it notes.
Right.
So
I can certainly see the value of it in being able to track where you're going and make sure that you hit all the high points along the way. So in the Darkness series, did you set out to write a trilogy, or did you
no.
write one book and then were you inspired? Like, how did the second one come along?
So interestingly, I was going to write a duology. The first book had a completely different ending. And then when I started talking to a publisher, they had said, trilogies sell better than duologies. So if you could make this a trilogy, that would be better. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that just changed. I mean, I had to rewrite the ending to the first book, and it took me on a completely different path. Not that I really had the second book planned out. I really didn't. For me, getting that first book done was priority number one. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry Jenkins. He wrote the Left Behind series, and he has his Writers Guild. And I learned so much from him. But one of the things he said was, that first book, you've got to make it sell. You got to make it the best. You've got to end it so in a satisfying way, because what if you don't write the second or the third or, whatever, that people will be happy with that first book, that you're not just leaving them hanging forever. George R. Martin fans can resonate with that, since there's still not a finality to his series. So I was really focused on just chasing the darkness, just making sure that it worked, that I left it with a satisfying ending. And then after talking to the publisher and whatnot, that's when I started going, okay, well, what am I going to do with embracing the darkness? And then I had no idea what was conquering the darkness was going to be about.
Mhm.
So I just knew I was going to be maybe resubmitting the bad guy in. You never know. I don't want to give spoilers. So
Was there any, I'm trying to find the right word. Was there any apprehension on your part when you said, "Oh my gosh, like I just finished this. It's done. I'm happy with it. Like I've got it out in the world. Now I have to go back to that world." Or was there an excitement where you got to go back to the world that you and characters that you created?
I was excited. So a little bit of my backstory in this is I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years. And once the kids started flying the coop and leaving and all of that, I had a little bit of an identity crisis. It's kind of like, what have I done with my life and who am I? And now what am I going to do? And so my younger son actually challenged me to write a book because he knew I loved reading so much, which, as you know, are completely two different skills. So
Sure. Oh yeah.
it doesn't matter how much you like to read, writing a book is completely different. But I went to UNM continuing education and took a creative writing class. And that's when I fell in love. There was a fire lit in me and I had a purpose, and I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning just because I wanted to hit the computer and start writing. So for me, continuing the story, I mean, I always knew that it was going to be more than one book. So continuing the story was an exciting prospect. You know, it is scary in the sense that, the first book, the pressure is, well, you've got to make it good so that people will want to read anything else you write, right?
Mhm.
And then the second book, I'm like, well, you hear about these trilogies that where the second book drags and it's just like a filler book. And I was like, well, you got to avoid that. So now I got to make this even better than the first book. So there was that pressure. And then the third book, because I knew I was closing mine off. There was not going to be a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I didn't want to do that. But so I knew in that one, then the pressure was even more to tie everything off with a beautiful pink bow and um, make sure it was excellent. And so each time, there was still a mounting pressure with each book, but I loved it. There was definitely times where I wanted to bang my head against the wall. There were times where I had these big pieces of white paper and I was like, I am not leaving until I get this story figured out. And this was in the second book. And I had to walk away for a week. I went and drank wine and walked and took my dogs, and because I couldn't get past a certain point. But I got it done and it was good. So, I mean, I'm not saying it was all joyful, happy times, but there was definitely banging head against the wall moments. A
Do
lot of them.
you feel as you're constructing these stories, especially, um, do you feel like a responsibility to the characters that you created, like to treat them with care, like that you have to protect some, and the other ones you have to kind of cast off?
Get rid of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yes, actually, yes. So in the second and third book, especially because my book, there's wars, there's battles, people have to die, right? I did get a few emails and messages from fans like, please do not kill this character, or please do not kill that character. And so I took some of that into consideration, but you do have to, especially when you're writing with wars and battles, it just doesn't make sense that everybody is going to survive.
Mhm.
So there were some characters, but it's hard. It's hard to want to pick like which one's going to get it. And then my poor character, Azrael is his name. Well, he's got two names, but Azrael is the first name he goes by. And he's the same character in all three books. All three books are told from his perspective, and I really put him through the ringer. The poor guy.
Mhm.
He goes through hell, especially in the third book, but it's good for him. He had to grow as a character and as a man himself. So uh, I I took some sick pleasure in doing that to him.
Do you get to the end of that third book and wrap it all up? It's edited, it's done, everything's ready for, to be sent off to the print house. And is there any nostalgia for, oh gosh, I really had fun with these people, like I'm not ready to say goodbye? Or did that ever come back afterwards once that book was released?
Yeah, actually, I do miss these characters. Asriel and I share a very similar temperament. little bit of anger management problem, which, comes out on the pickleball court. Yeah, I can tell you that.
I've
But
heard, actually. Never
yeah.
seen it, but I've heard.
Oh yeah, mm, I can get a little mean. Anyhow, neither here nor there. So yeah, these are my babies. These are my first books, right? These are the characters that first, I evolved alongside with them. So there's definitely some nostalgia. And, after Conquering the Darkness finished, I already knew that I had set it up that there's, will be some stories about other characters in these books. So I'm not leaving the world forever. In fact, unfortunately, all of 2024, I worked on a book with a character that's in the second and third book. He became a fan favorite. He's funny, witty, he's a prince. And I wanted to write his story next. And I spent all year writing it and hated the entire thing. Like, it was not working. I met with my editor. She did a developmental edit, and she tried to help me through it. And finally I'm like, that is it. He is grounded. He's going on the shelf. I am done with him for now. It's just not working. And so that's when I just started the new project in 2025. So I hate to say I wasted a whole year, because I am going to come back to, his name's Nicholas. I'm going to come back to his story, and I have a better idea, I hope. And I think it's going to work better. So now I'm excited about it again, because I was dreading it. So, and there's a couple other characters in these stories that, they might get a full book. They might get a novella. I don't, I haven't figured that out yet, but I will definitely be back into the darkness world for sure.
Gotcha. So these books are in the fantasy genre, medieval times. Can you, for the viewers that don't know what fantasy is, can you help us understand?
Yeah. So it's a medieval fantasy. So the medieval, obviously, it takes place during medieval times. Fantasy, mine is not. It's kind of in between a low fantasy and a high fantasy, in the sense that I have a magic system. It's well-defined magic system, and there's a cost to the magic. And, and then I do have different creatures. So like on the second and third book, there's a picture of a wyvern. Well, people might think it's a dragon, but it's actually a wyvern. And I have different, some different creatures in the books, and it's in a whole different make-believe world. Like, it's not Earth. It's completely different. And yeah, like I said, there's magic. I have 10 different types of magic in my magic system. So I have 5 physical and 5 mental. The physical are pretty straightforward when it comes to fantasy books with the elemental. You have your fire, earth, water, and air magic. And then there's what's called amp or amplified, which is increased strength and speed. And then on the mental side, I have, telekinesis, teleportation. I use different words for those though. And healer, a shield, and then someone who can actually track and sense magic. So that's kind of the magic system. And like I said, there's a cost to that magic, and it's defined, where like a low magic system is like Harry Potter, where people have wands, they just use magic, and it just, it just happens. And you don't know how it happens, but you love it anyway. Kind of Lord of the Rings too. You're like, I don't even know what magic this guy has, but he has a staff that glows on the end and can split a huge bridge and make a big old fire demon fall down it. So who cares how it happens? Versus, Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan. He is probably the most epic world builder. Actually has his own, what it's called, a Cosmere. I've only read 3 of his books, but he's got a massive. I mean, his last book he wrote actually has more words than the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's like a chunk. But his magic system, he's got very defined magic system it's called a high fantasy. So anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to know. But yeah, lots of magic. I do have some romance in my books as well, because I love that part. I like the romance in there. And mine is a enemies to lovers. That's called a trope. So it's an enemies to lovers trope, where they don't like each other, obviously, at first, and then they do. So
How adult do the books get?
I usually say PG-13. So when I'm at events and I have kids come up to my book or my table and ask about it, I'm like, "Where's your mom?" because I need to know what you're reading before I will sell you this book.
Mhm.
I usually, ages 16, just because of the romance. The first book is pretty tame. The second and the third, the romance amps up a little bit. So I just want to make sure that, um, you know, I don't want to get the nasty email from mom or dad saying, "What did you sell my kid?" So
Mhm.
I, I would say, upper high school and above. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Going back to the world building, is that something I remember when Avatar first came out and they interviewed James Cameron and he said, "Oh, the next Avatar is going to take, I don't know, 5 or 6 years." It took 15 or
yeah,
some ridiculous. But he said, "But we're going to do two because we've already built this world. So we're going to do films back to back or concurrently." Um, so you build the world and the magic systems and everything once. Does it develop as you go through the next 2 or 3 books, or do you need to be very disciplined to stay with what was in book one so that it doesn't stray from what you created?
that's really a good question and something I wish I would have really thought about before I wrote
Huh.
book one. um, and mostly when it comes to the world building for me, when I say that is because of my magic system. And so chasing the darkness happens in this land called Pandaren. There's a little map right there that I made. And the magic system I had, it worked out great. I loved it. But then once I started writing and thinking about a second and third book, I realized I needed to make this world bigger. I just can't have a world with one continent. You know what I mean? And just these people. It's got to be bigger than that. That just doesn't make sense. So I had to really think through my magic system, and I was kind of tied by it and creating new kingdoms. But I'm like, okay, but this is the magic system of this world. So how is their magic different? And how do I figure that out? So there was um, lot of brainstorming with my older son, Tyler. He's a huge fantasy reader. So we talked through a lot of it. Like, does this make sense? Will this work? If these people have this type of magic, but it evolved from this type, you know what I mean? So I had to really do some finagling on that. So, for all the potential authors out there, if you're going to write a trilogy or more with a magic system, make sure it has room to grow or it's big enough or you just stay confined to it. But for me, I really wanted my world to get bigger. So like in the second book, I bring in 4 totally different kingdoms who have different yet somewhat similar magic. So, like for instance, one of my characters is a vaulter, so teleportation, right? So he can pop up here and there. And then I have this kingdom that they come in. Well, they're shade walkers. They hang out, they can slip through the shadows. So it's very similar magic in that sense. They evolved from each other, but yet they're different because of time and, all of that. So I was a little hand tied with my magic system. And needless to say, with this second book or this book I'm working on now, I've been really making sure that it all makes sense and that it can all flow and it can all do what it needs to do so that if I continue that storyline, I have some wiggle room.
Yeah. Let's talk about the mechanics of writing. When do you prefer to write? Like what time of day?
I'm a morning person,
Mhm.
so I prefer getting it done in the morning. I can sometimes write in the afternoon if I've had a nap. I'm also a professional napper. I don't know if you knew that was a thing.
Yeah, I'm on the team with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've pretty much taken a nap almost every day since my kids were born. So that's about 26 years. So I can write in the afternoon, after, I've had a little nap and then make another cup of coffee. But morning is my preferred time to really get writing done. The only problem is that everything else happens. Like if I want to go to the gym,
Right.
that has to happen in the morning because it ain't happening otherwise. Pickleball and golf always happen in the morning. So I've had to force myself sometimes to do the afternoons. Evenings, I'm done. I go to bed between 8:30 and 9. So
Mhm.
I can't think properly at that time. So
Do
definitely
you
morning.
write in your office that you're seeing you in right now?
Yeah, most of the
Do
time. Yeah.
But do you ever go anywhere else? Because like you've got things there that you need. You've got the story construct and you've got so can you be mobile? Could you go on vacation and write?
Yes, I could. Sometimes I even write outside. I have a really pretty view and a waterfall feature. So that's really relaxing. Sometimes I will go to a coffee shop because it's just true focused work. It's amazing how difficult it is to work at home because there's so many other things, battling for your attention, whether the laundry's going off or my dogs, they're lovely. Or, the fact that I'm like, oh, I really need to vacuum that, or I need to clean that. And it's amazing how I hate cleaning, but when it comes to that or sitting down to write, I'm like, I really need to get that done, But no, if I like, for instance, if I had that and I was going somewhere, I could take a picture of it with my phone, or, I have my journal that I take with me in a notebook. So I make sure that I have what I need. And if not, then, if I'm writing, I'll just say, insert whatever name here, whatever his name is, So there's ways around it, but there's actually a coffee shop near my house that makes the best flat white lattes ever. So I do like going there, but it ends up costing me money because I can't just have one.
Is there a certain amount when you sit down to write where you go, hey, I'm going to get to this point, or I'm going to finish this chapter? Or do you have in your mind, like, I've got to get a certain number of words to have this be worthwhile?
Yes, I shoot for, when I'm doing the first draft, 2,000 words a day, because that is my baseline for a chapter. It's probably the minimum amount of words that I have in a chapter normally. Like in this story I'm working on, I have I have a chapter that's like 1,900 words, which is to me almost too short for what I like. But then I have a chapter that's over 5,000 words, but I'd shoot for 2,000. If I hit that goal, then that scene or chapter is done. And I, do a little happy dance for the day. And that could take anywhere from, depending on how the creativity is, that could take 1 to 4 hours, depending on how things are going. I rarely sit at my desk during the first draft for probably more than 2 hours, just because I find that really digging into that creativity, it can be tiring for me. Versus editing and rewriting, I can sit here for 4 to 8 hours and just stay on it and work on it. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I should have been an editor maybe instead of an author.
So do you, I get the sense that you don't want to leave an idea or a chapter or a scene halfway through. Like, you might get to, do you get to that point and go, gosh, I think I'd really like to go play pickleball or go to the gym or go have coffee, but
Yeah.
I haven't finished this. And if I don't finish it, like, I get that fear of, not a fear, but I just see the story here. Like, I don't plan anything, but I go, well, what if I come back and it's not playing anymore? And so I
Right.
got to finish it. Does that happen to you?
It does, but what I will do, so like if I have to be somewhere, if I have to go play pickleball, of course, and I'm in the middle of writing and I know how I want the scene to go and what I want it to do, I will just quickly type notes right into the page. Like, okay, so-and-so is going to go here, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And this is what I want to see, blah, 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 blah. And then I feel like I've dumped it so that when I come back to that, I know where I was and I know what I'm doing and I have a plan. So I definitely wouldn't just leave it in my head because it will be gone.
Yeah.
I always think, at night, if like I come up with an idea, or at the gym, I come up with an idea, I always have my phone because I'll put it in my notes, like, okay, blah, blah, here's a cool idea. Because if I try to come back to it and say, oh, I'll remember it. Oh, I never do. So yeah, make sure I take notes.
So you put on the shelf an entire book that you wrote about a character. What was his name?
His name is Nicholas, Prince Nicholas
uh-huh.
Desari. Yeah.
Prince Nicholas.
Yeah.
But you've got a new idea for him. But have you ever thrown out a chunk of any of the books that you've written and had published? In other words, you go, oh, you know what? I don't like this entire thing. I'm going to get rid of this and replace it with something else.
And that I've actually published, or
Yes.
just still in the draft? No, everything that I only have, well, I'm not like you. I only have 3 books out. That's all I got.
Only 3 books. That's
Only 3,
about
which
3 more than 8 billion people.
that
But
is
go
true.
ahead.
I'm actually very proud of my 3, but no, now would I want to go back to, I've learned so much from Chasing the Darkness that would I want to go back and tweak it and, fix some things and, not necessarily the storyline. I think the storyline is great. But I would probably like that magic system or just certain things that I just kind of took for granted when I was writing. I was just having so much fun writing that I'd probably go back and fix. if that opportunity presents itself. The only problem with that idea is I have an audiobook for each book. So
Oh yeah. That's not quite as easy to fix.
no. So
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend at an event recently, and she had mentioned that I could, like on the 10-year date, have a re-release, and it won't match the audiobook, but, and I don't, unless I win the lottery, I'm not paying to redo all those audiobooks. I can tell you that they're expensive to make. So
I understand.
yeah.
Wow, awesome. This is like insightful. Okay, so you have a brand new book coming out next year in the spring called Battle Beyond the Veil.
Yep.
And veil, I'm thinking of like a veil in a wedding dress. No.
No,
Oh, so it's not
no,
a War of the Roses type thing.
it is
Um,
not.
can we get a
No.
little preview? Is this also medieval
No.
fantasy?
So this is Urban Day. So it's a modern day fantasy.
Ah,
I wanted to try it out because honestly, I was sick of trying to come up with, electricity and, showering systems and how to communicate with someone across a land. Telephones and electricity and plumbing are fabulous, fabulous things. So I wanted to try urban fantasy, and it's actually a book with angels and demons. So the veil is actually in between the human realm and the spiritual realm.
huh.
Yeah. So that's this story that's going to be coming out. I started it. I need to look at my notes, but I started at the beginning-ish of this year,
Mhm.
and it's due to my editor December 4th. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
we're in the
I have some
window
work
here. We
to
got,
do.
yeah, 16, 18 more days.
Yeah.
So what's the process like for you? You write it, you do the rewrite, you punch it up, then you give it to your editor, you're going to get it back. How much of that work happens before, obviously then somebody has to typeset it and do the cover art, but how many back and forths do you have before you and your editor agree that it's ready for publication?
Well, actually, the editor is probably the second person-ish that sees it. So I have my first draft, and then I do the rewrites and the edits, and I'll probably do that two. I think with this one, I did it about two more times. And then I have a group of beta readers. So
Mhm.
I send it off to them. And the last two books I had 9 beta readers. This time I had 4. I'm like, I'm going to wheedle this down because I don't need everybody's opinion on everything. Right.
Right.
But it was really, I didn't want to do so much editing if the story didn't make sense. So the beta readers, I told them, look, don't look for commas. I misspelled words. There's, I know it's a little bit of a mess, but I need to make sure this makes sense. I need to make sure that each of these chapters is making you turn the page, that you're excited about it. All of that. They kind of do like a 10,000, height view of the story to make sure it all works and that they liked it. And thankfully, when I got their feedback, none of them said to burn it. So that's a plus. And that's super helpful. And I really trust these guys. They've read my other books, so they do know that I'm capable of writing a book. And what's really funny, not haha, but funny, interesting is I really was struggling with, like, I can't do this. I don't know how to write a book. I have no idea what I'm doing. I cannot get this done. I really struggled. And I think some of that was from last year with Nicholas's story, but it was nerve-wracking, but it was great to get the book out to them and then get their feedback. And they actually helped me fix some plot points and some issues that I was having, which I already knew were a problem. But just getting their insight was super helpful. So anyway, I get their feedback, and then I continue to edit and continue to make changes. And I try to get it as polished as possible before I give it to my editor, Rachel, who
Mhm.
actually lives in Albuquerque, for the record.
Mhm.
And then she has it for 6 weeks, whatever. I can't remember when she's going to get back to me, probably mid-January. And then I look at what her suggestions are, and then kind of, if I have questions, we just kind of go back and forth. And then she might look at it one more time, depending. And then from there, I will either find someone to format it, or I will have to learn how to do it. My cover artist did the last 2 books for me, but I don't think she's doing that anymore. So
Oh,
I have
gotcha.
to. There's a program out there that I can get, but so yeah, I'm meeting with my cover artist actually in December, and we're going to start going over the cover because I need that for marketing purposes as well.
Sure.
And So yeah, so that's why I said, spring launch. I don't know if it's going to be early spring or late spring. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I know that feeling.
Yeah,
Have you ever been approached to ghostwrite a book for someone else?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
like that would be stressful. I don't know. I guess because they're not my characters, and then I'm, writing for like I write mostly, obviously for myself and now my fans, which I have a few. Very exciting. But to ghostwrite a story that I'm maybe not invested in,
mhm.
I don't know if I would be able to do that. It would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody came to you with a story idea and said, "Hey, Cassie, you know what? I'm rich. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm a billionaire. I have this story. I have these ideas. I want you to write a book about it." And like you said, you really have nothing, but it would be your name. You would take their idea. Is that something you could do? Like, would you be able to go, okay, I'm just going to shift gears here. I'm going to take somebody else's kind of concept and create a unique story around it?
I would like to think that I could. I also, I feel like sometimes I work better with a deadline, but then I don't know if I'd put too much pressure on myself if he gave me like, you have 6 weeks to get it done. I'm like, well, that's going to be a little difficult because it
Uh-huh.
take me a year to get this
Yeah.
one done. So that would be, I think, one of my biggest reservations was just the time constraint. And if that was the case, and then honestly, I would really have to treat that as a priority over everything else in my life, right? Because
Sure.
that would be a job. And, I go back and forth with my writing career. Like, okay, I'm doing this for me. I'm not making money. I'm in the red because I did, spend tons of money on marketing and the audiobooks and everything else. So if I was writing a book for someone else who was paying me to do that, then it would be, a job, and
Mhm.
my pickleball game would suffer. So would my golf.
Yes,
No,
your
it would just
Friday
be
morning ladies group would miss you.
well, they're fun. Actually, they're super fun. But it would definitely be a different mindset. I definitely wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to do that. But the idea of the challenge of it would be really interesting. But
Mhm.
it would just be a completely different approach.
Yeah, yeah, I could understand that for sure. Got it. Okay. Um, how many book ideas do you have right now? Like, you're going to continue to do this, I can tell. Like, do you have enough to carry you into the next decade of your life? Like, how many?
Yeah. So, okay, besides the one I'm working on, which I'm leaving open for two possible other characters, it won't be a trilogy, but there might be some spinoffs, plus the spinoffs for the Darkness trilogy. Plus, I have some other ideas. Yeah, I have, probably 8 to 10 more books in my brain. I
Wow.
get a little concerned. I am 53, which I know is not old, but I'm like, I need more time. If it's taking me a year to write a book from start to publish, then we're looking at 63 before I get these done, if assuming everything goes smoothly and all of that. So, I definitely do have some concepts and some ideas in my head. I do wish that I could get them done faster. And I probably could if I made myself sit down and, work longer. But sometimes I just get so tired.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
understood.
yeah.
So, I guess the overriding question is, you talked about the fact it costs money to be an author, right? People always say, "Oh, I'm querying. I want to get a publishing deal," and I tell them, because I had my first ever book that I wrote published by a bigger publishing house. I said, "You don't make any money from a publisher, right?
Right.
They spend money and they want to get it back. You'll get these tiny little residuals if your book sells, but they're not. If you're an unknown author." They're not going to promote you. You got to get out on the road and promote yourself, social media, book signings, those kind of things. So is it, I guess, like, is it worth it? Like, the finished product, don't forget about your fans, but the feedback you get from people, the enjoyment, the fulfillment you get from creating and completing a story, is it worth it to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I was just at an event. So my books do really well at Renaissance fairs and Comic Cons. Now, if you would have
Mhm.
asked me 6 years ago if I'd be donning a corset and going to these events and setting up a tent, I would have said, you are nuts.
Uh-huh.
However, that seems to be my life now. But it is surreal, shocking, surprising, and so gratifying when a fan comes up to the table and says, "When's your next book coming out?" Or, "I love the first book. I need to buy the next two." Or, "Oh my gosh, this character just was great." It's that never gets old. And so I love it. I am very blessed that my husband has a fabulous job that allows me to probably spend more of his money than he would have liked on marketing things. But when I jumped into this, I started writing in 2019, so 6 years ago. When I jumped into this, I jumped into the deep end. There was no wading in. I'm like, I'm all in. And so, I spent the money and had a website created. I got business cards. I've got, tchotchkes that I give out if people buy the trilogy. I mean, I spent money on a map program. I spent money on a writing program, but again, my husband, super, super supportive. He's my biggest fan and he has a great job. So I have no problem spending his money. Well, my money is, it's half mine. So.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Can anybody write a book? Anybody who's watching, can anybody write a book if they're willing to put the time in or learn how to do it? Or are there people you think, no, it could never happen?
If they're a reader, then I think anybody can write a book.
Oh, tell me why.
Well, I think you have to love the written word. You have to love stories. You have to love the creation of stories. And I don't mean like sitting down and reading big, thick books, but you have to be enamored by the process. I mean, like you can love movies, but that's different. Like, a screenplay, as you said, you write screenplays, is totally different than writing a full 90,000 word novel. So I think being a reader is super important. Now, can anyone do it? Yeah, but you better learn, right? You just can't sit down and write a book. You have to know how a book is structured, how characters grow, how the antagonist works with with your protagonist, how this whole character arc and the story structure and all of that. You've got to do your research and be constantly learning. For me, I'm constantly learning. Now, someone like Stephen King, no, he probably doesn't have to learn anything. He's got it down to a science. But I think anyone could do it, but I think your chances are better if you do love to read, you love the written word, and you are disciplined. It's hard. You battle, I don't know if you ever have, but I've battled insecurities and imposter syndrome and, trying to figure out how to form the perfect sentence. And, I don't know how many sentences are in my book, but that gets tiring after a while, like, each verb, each noun. And you don't I'm not good at grammar. I wish I would have taken more English and writing classes, but that wasn't where I was headed when I was in college. I was going to be a marine biologist, but I never left the desert. So that makes it a little tricky. But, my comma placement, I've had to learn a lot about commas, and I learned that, through my editor and, different editing programs and whatnot. So yeah, can anyone do it? Sure. But it's not easy. It takes work.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that, but I also agree with what you said, that it is really fulfilling, especially the feedback. Like I'm with you. You make no money. The most money I ever made on selling books was when I used to write trade books back when I was a consultant.
Okay.
And you make tons of money on those, but there's no soul in them, right?
Yeah.
A book on how to sell healthcare or how to market there's just nothing there. But when it comes to novels, there's a guy named Thomas Deja from Chicago, and he wrote a book that really just kind of resonated with me, called Meet John Trow, about a modern day guy who, his life is just kind of going to hell, and he becomes a Civil War reenactor, and he gets kind of consumed by the guy he's reenacting.
Yeah.
But I contacted Tom Deja once and was just asking him some questions about writing, and he said, Michael, he said, fiction is dead. He said, there's just, and he hasn't written a fictional book since. He said, but there's no market for it. If you do it for the love of it, you'll find people that will also love it. But if you're doing it to become a successful, author earning a living from writing, gosh, it's a hard way to go.
Yeah.
So there really does have to be that desire, I think, that want to create. But when people come back and say, like that, you said, people come to your book signings, to me, that's worth more than any amount of money you could spend
Absolutely.
anything I've ever written. I just love hearing that feedback where somebody enjoyed it or hated it because they hated, the antagonist or something. Yeah, it's just great. So, uh,
Yeah.
Battle Beyond the Veil, where can people find you? They can find you on your Amazon authors page, which I'm sure will be updated when the new book comes out. But where else can they
Yeah.
find you?
So the best place probably is my website, which is cassiesanchez.com. That will lead you to all my social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But yeah, there it is.
Hey, look at that.
Which is, yeah, now, and I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to my guy and start. Oh, look, you can subscribe. So yeah, that's my website. Kind of fun.
Look at all these awards. My
I
goodness.
know.
Oh,
How
there she is.
exciting.
That is it the same office?
No, actually, that's just my favorite room in the house. And my office used to be in there, but there's no door.
Oh, okay.
And I
Oh,
have to
yeah, yeah,
keep
yeah.
like husband and kids and dogs out. But that's my favorite room in the house because it's library and I have all my Harry Potter stuff. And so
Cool. And there's the map of Pandaren.
Pandaren. Yep.
Pandaren. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I
Pandaren.
do have a pronunciation guide in the front of each book, so that
Ah,
helps people out a
I
little
like
bit.
that too. And somewhere on here, reach out. I'm guessing
Yep.
that's your social
That's the
media.
best way to get a hold of me.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
or you can follow me on any of the, like I said, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Cassie, thank you really, really so much for joining me today for this.
absolutely.
This is like, to me, it's so fascinating because I don't write anything like you or like real authors, right? And so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So when I get to talk to somebody that actually knows what they're doing, it really is helpful.
Well, it sounds like your process works pretty well. You have 10 books, so I think you're doing just fine.
A 10-book trilogy. There's more to be said about that, but we'll wait for another day.
Yeah,
Please come back when Beyond the Veil, Battle Beyond the Veil comes out in the spring. We'd love to talk about that if you
absolutely. I would
would.
love to.
And until then, everybody needs to go and CassieSanchez.com and follow her and
Yeah.
read the trilogy. Thanks so much, Cassie.
Thank you.
All right. Take care now.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right. So now that's awesome. It's like a college level course for me because as I've talked about, in different formats, I have zero plan. I don't even I don't even know where the stories come from. I just sit down and open the computer and this little movie starts playing and I just type what I see as quickly as I can. There's no structure, there's no architecture, there's no character. I mean, there's character development if that's what's here, but I have no idea where it comes from. I don't know the next word I'm going to write when I sit down. I have no idea where the chapter or the story is going to end. And if I ever get an inkling that something might happen, I have no idea how I'll get there. It just kind of happens. Not good or bad, but it just is. So go check out Cassie Sanchez. So for you Back to Billy fans, book 10, look, I'm not dumb enough to do the same thing over again, which is to say, this is it. In fact, there's something right at the end of that book that might make you question whether this is it. But a 10-book trilogy really ought to be enough. And I've got so many other book projects that I've started. I'm excited about Dink This, which is my pickleball comedy, which will be out in the spring. There's already a complete screenplay for that if it ever gets to the film stage. But yeah, so for you Back to Billy fans, January 19th will be the official release date for What Lies Beneath. And something that has never happened in any of the other 9 books, never been allowed to happen by the story architect, which I guess is me, something happens. And that's what throws this whole world into turmoil. I don't know. Can it be resolved? It'll be resolved, but not in a way that you think it would. Not even close. Because I didn't think it would, because I had no idea until I got there. So who knows? Anyway, thanks so much for joining. If you are a Civil War expert, if you are or highly opinionated on time travel, if you want to talk a lot about religion, if you'd like to talk a bunch about the Second Amendment, I'd love to have you as a guest because those are all subjects of the books I'm going to be working on and releasing over the next 2 years. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. So all you need to do is just get with me in the comments or email me at billythekidridesagain@gmail.com and we can talk more about that. But until next time, I'm MG and I will see you real soon. I'm out.